At my wedding, my golden child sister tried to steal the spotlight by announcing her pregnancy with a cake, so I exposed her cheating and ruined her marriage instead. 3 days ago, I 28F got married to my boyfriend of 5 years, Jason 28M. My bratty younger sister, Allison 26F, was also attending, and she had planned on stealing my thunder. Unfortunately for her, I was 2 steps ahead the entire time. About a week before the wedding, the baker responsible for our wedding cake informed me that Allison had contacted her requesting a second cake, a pregnancy announcement cake, for the day of the wedding. Allison claimed that I had asked for this cake, but thankfully the baker was smart enough to confirm with me first. Allison had even offered to pay double to keep it a secret. It was clear to me then that Allison was planning some sort of attention-seeking stunt at my wedding, and I decided to play along, but with my own twist. I could have easily uninvited her, but I was too annoyed by her behavior to let her get away with it. This was my day, and she was trying to hijack it. So instead of avoiding confrontation, I decided to beat her at her own game. On the day of the wedding, everything went smoothly during the ceremony. As Jason and I were about to cut our cake, Allison stood up and announced she had a surprise for everyone. She brought out the second cake, which had congratulations on the new baby written on it in icing. My parents predictably started crying and rushed to congratulate her, and her husband Eric 20I completely forgetting about me. As people crowded around her, I smiled and told her I was happy for her, but that someone special was missing from the celebration. This was the cue for my special guest to enter, Allison's ex-boyfriend, Jared 26M. Allison had dated Jared before marrying Eric, and there had been significant overlap between the two relationships. She had been two-timing them for at least 6 months. I had known this for a while, but had kept quiet until now. Jared, being kind and wanting closure, agreed to show up at my wedding when I explained what Allison had been planning. When Jared entered the room, Allison's smug smile disappeared. He walked right up to her, congratulated her on the pregnancy, and then dropped the bomb. He told Eric that Allison had been two-timing them both. Eric was shocked. Jared didn't stay long after delivering the news. He thanked Jason and me for the invitation and left. Chaos ensued. Eric started yelling at Allison, and they stormed out. My parents began screaming at me, accusing me of ruining Allison's marriage over something so petty. But I stood my ground. If they didn't like what I had done, they could leave as well, and they did. After the chaos, only a few people left, and we were still able to continue with the wedding. However, the aftermath lingered. The next day, my parents visited me, demanding that I apologize to Allison and Eric, and even suggested I should cover her divorce and medical expenses. Naturally, I laughed it off. I burst out laughing because I couldn't believe my parents actually thought I would pay for Allison's divorce and medical expenses. I told them that it wasn't my responsibility to clean up the mess that she had created. If anything, Allison was the one who destroyed her own marriage by lying and cheating. I reminded them that I didn't force her to two-time her ex and her husband, and I certainly didn't tell her to reach out to Jared all these years and lead him on. But my parents didn't want to hear it. They insisted that I was the reason Eric was leaving her, and that I had provoked Jared into confronting them at the wedding. They were trying to make me feel guilty, saying that Allison was in a fragile state with the pregnancy and that the stress of a divorce could have serious consequences for her health. At this point, it was clear to me that they would never hold Allison accountable for her actions. I calmly told them that I was done with being the scapegoat in this family, and that I wasn't going to apologize for telling the truth. If they wanted to continue babying Allison and enabling her behavior, that was their choice, but I wasn't going to be a part of it. I told them I was cutting ties with both of them and Allison for good, and that they should find another way to deal with her problems. My parents were furious. My mom started crying, and my dad yelled at me for being heartless and abandoning my sister in her time of need. But I stood firm. I told them that if they continued to side with Allison no matter what she did, they were choosing her over me, and that wasn't something I could live with anymore. After a few more minutes of arguing, they finally left, still blaming me for everything. I felt a strange sense of relief once they were gone. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I knew it was the right decision to cut them off even if it was painful. In the days that followed, I focused on my new life with Jason. We were getting ready for our honeymoon and trying to put all the drama behind us. My friends and the family members who supported me reached out to offer their congratulations and tell me that I had done the right thing. It felt good to know that not everyone saw me as the villain. As for Allison, I don't know what's happening with her now. Last I heard, she and Eric were officially separated and moving forward with the divorce. My parents are still trying to convince me to make things right, but I'm standing my ground. I refuse to apologize for exposing the truth, and I certainly won't be paying for her mistakes. Maybe one day they'll see things clearly, but for now I'm at peace with my decision. I'm done with the toxic dynamics in my family, and I'm finally free to live my life on my own terms. Update. Since the day I confronted my family and drew the line, a lot has changed both internally and externally. That moment of standing up to my parents, refusing to be dragged into my sister Allison's mess, was the most liberating thing I've ever done. In that heated argument, I finally let out all the years of frustration, pent-up resentment, and anger that had built up from always being blamed for everything wrong in Allison's life. I had been their emotional punching bag for far too long, and walking away from that role was the first step toward reclaiming my life. My relationship with my parents has completely deteriorated since then. They still try to reach out every so often, mostly in the form of manipulative texts or guilt-tripping voicemails, asking me to reconsider paying for Allison's divorce or helping with her medical bills. It's like they refuse to acknowledge the reality that their constant coddling of her is the reason she's in this mess in the first place. They go on about how family is supposed to support each other, but I've come to realize that their version of support is entirely one-sided. It was always about me giving and them taking, without a second thought for my needs or feelings. Allison, on the other hand, hasn't changed much. After our blowout, she tried to manipulate me through social media, playing the victim and acting like I had abandoned her in her time of need. It was the same old story, her mistakes, her consequences, but somehow it was my fault she was suffering. Eric, her now ex-husband, officially filed for divorce, and from what I hear through mutual acquaintances. Meanwhile, Allison is struggling to get by, refusing to take accountability for her actions. She's still waiting for anyone to swoop in and clean up the mess she's made, but I'm not that person anymore. As for me, I've made significant strides in my own life. After cutting ties with my toxic family, I've found support in the people who truly matter, my friends Jason, and even extended family members who have reached out to tell me they understand why I made the choices I did. Jason has been an incredible source of strength for me. He never pressured me into making any decisions about my family, but he was always there to listen, to support me emotionally, and to remind me that my worth isn't tied to their approval or demands. We've grown closer than ever, and for the first time I feel like I'm building a life with someone who respects my boundaries and understands my need for independence. I've also started therapy, which has been life-changing. In those sessions, I've been unpacking all the years of emotional manipulation and the scapegoating my family put me through. It's hard work, but I'm learning to set healthier boundaries and trust my own instincts more. I no longer feel the weight of guilt that used to plague me whenever I thought about saying no to my parents or Allison. Instead, I feel empowered to protect myself and prioritize my mental and emotional well-being. The peace I feel now is indescribable. It's like I've been carrying this enormous burden my entire life, and finally I've put it down. I no longer wake up dreading phone calls from my mother or worrying about the next drama Allison will drag me into. I've disconnected from the toxicity, and while the journey to healing is ongoing, I'm finally in a place where I can focus on myself. Of course, there are moments of doubt. It's not easy to walk away from your family, even when you know it's the right thing to do. Sometimes I think about what could have been if my parents had treated me with the same love and support they showered on Allison. But those thoughts are fleeting. I know now that their favoritism and manipulation were never about me, they were about their own issues, and I can't fix them. Allison still sends the occasional message, usually passive-aggressive, about how I abandoned her, but I've stopped responding. There is no point in engaging with someone who refuses to change or take responsibility for their actions. She's on her own path now, and while I wish her no harm, I'm done letting her mistakes derail my life. I've chosen a path of healing, and for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the future. In the end, standing up to my family was the hardest and best decision I ever made. I lost people who were supposed to love me unconditionally, but in doing so, I gained a sense of freedom, clarity, and self-respect that I had been missing for years. I'm no longer the scapegoat. I'm no longer the person they can dump their problems on. I'm just me, and that's enough. Final update. Months have passed since I made the decision to cut ties with my family, and I can confidently say that this has been one of the most transformative periods of my life. The weight of their expectations and the endless cycle of drama have been replaced with a sense of freedom and newfound clarity. I've had the opportunity to reflect on my past and embrace the present without the heavy burden of guilt that once dictated my choices. My relationship with my parents remains strained. They continue to send occasional texts, often filled with disappointment and anger, attempting to guilt trip. They still don't seem to understand that I'm no longer their emotional crutch. Each time I read their messages, I'm reminded of why I had to walk away. It's become clear to me that their love is conditional based on my compliance with their expectations. For the first time, I feel empowered to stand firm in my decisions, no matter how uncomfortable that may be for them. Allison, too, is still in her own world of chaos. After her divorce, she tried to rekindle our relationship, but instead of the supportive sister she claimed to be, I watched as she spiraled deeper into her problems, unable or unwilling to take responsibility for her choices. While I have compassion for her struggles, I refuse to be pulled back into her drama. I've learned to prioritize my well-being over the toxic cycles that used to consume me. Instead, I've been focusing on my own healing and growth. Therapy has been instrumental in helping me process my feelings and develop healthier boundaries. I've learned that it's okay to prioritize myself and that I deserve relationships built on mutual respect and understanding. My therapist has guided me through techniques to combat the guilt that occasionally creeps in, reminding me that self-care is not selfish, it's necessary. Jason has been a significant part of my journey. His unwavering support has shown me what a healthy relationship looks like. Together, we've created a space where we can both share our thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment. His encouragement has helped me grow in ways I never thought possible. We've taken trips together, explored new hobbies, and most importantly, built a partnership rooted in trust and understanding. I've discovered a side of myself that was hidden beneath years of family obligations, and it feels incredible to embrace my true identity. I've also reconnected with friends I had distanced myself. These friendships have provided me with a support system that uplifts and encourages me. We share laughs, adventures, and even the occasional deep conversation about life, love, and everything in between. I've come to appreciate the beauty of genuine connections, and these relationships have added so much joy to my life. Looking forward, I'm excited about what's to come. I'm in the process of pursuing new opportunities at work that align with my passions and interests. I feel more confident in my abilities and less shackled by the fear of failure. The world feels like a much brighter place now that I've reclaimed my power. While the memories of my family's toxic behavior still linger, I've learned to acknowledge them without letting them dictate my future. I now understand that I have the right to define what family means to me, and that can include those who genuinely care for and support me, friends, chosen family, and the love I share with Jason. As I reflect on this journey, I'm proud of the person I've become. The road hasn't been easy, but I wouldn't change a thing. I've chosen self-love and self-respect, and those choices have led me to a place of peace and empowerment. I'm ready for whatever comes next, knowing that I have the strength to face it head on. In the end, I've discovered that letting go of toxic relationships doesn't mean losing love, it means creating space for healthier, more fulfilling connections in my life. I'm excited to embrace the future, knowing that it's bright and full of possibilities.